this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. In this week's guitar lesson, we're going to take a look at a Jerry Garcia style lead that's played over a Grateful Dead style jam track. I've got the lesson split into two parts. In this video, we'll take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half, as well as download the tablature and the MP3 jam track, just go to ActiveMelody.com, go to the lessons page, and do a search for EP196. That's the lesson number for this lesson. So let's go ahead and get started with part one. Alright, let's talk through the structure of the song. We'll go through the chords, and then we'll get into all the notes and the scales and how to set this thing up. So the song starts on a D chord, even though the song is actually in the key of A. Now that will confuse some of you. I know a lot of people assume that whatever that first chord is, that's the key that the song is in. But this is a situation where that isn't the case. That is the case a lot of times, but not this time. So what that means is we're starting on the 4 chord. And the Grateful Dead would do that often, and a lot of jam bands will do that, where you start on the 4 chord to create some tension, and then you go to the 1 chord to relieve that tension. So here's your D chord, and then here's the A chord. You can feel the relief right there. Then I go down to a G chord, which gets us back to the D chord. And you just create that cycle like that. Now the only other part to this was there was an E chord, which would be the 5 chord. And then back to the 4, and then back to the 1. And that's the cycle of the chords. Now there's kind of two ways you could think of playing lead. And what Jerry Garcia was great at, he's really a phenomenal musician in a lot of respects, but he would play the chord changes. And that's always, I always think of that as the sign of a real musician, is somebody that plays the changes, which means you change the scale to match whatever the chord is. You have to anticipate it. You have to really be pretty clever to be able to do that. Now that's one way to do this. The other way you could do this is to just stay within the key of the song. So the song we have determined is in the key of A, which means you could play the A major pentatonic scale, for example, throughout all those chord changes, and it's going to work. Anything you play in the A major pentatonic scale is going to work over those chords, no matter where you're at in the song. So that's kind of, I think of it this way. I think of that as being my safe place. So if I get lost in the chord changes, I at least know I can go back to the key that the song is in and find some kind of common ground. Alright, so the song starts with a D, and what I'm going to do from a scale perspective is I'm going to start with a D major scale, just the way that Jerry would do it. So I'm starting with Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do over D. Those 7 notes are the major scale. And so the first little lick, and I got these licks, by the way, by listening to recordings of Jerry. So these are actual Jerry Garcia licks. That's the first little phrase we're going to learn. And then I want you to be able to take these licks and use them in your own playing. So we're going to learn them here, and then you're going to play them over the jam track to practice learning them and putting them in context. But then try putting them into other jam tracks or playing them along with other songs. That's how you really know that they're starting to sink in. Alright, so we're going to start this thing on the 9th fret 1st string, do a hammer onto the 10th fret, back to the 9th fret, 12th fret 2nd string. Then I'm going to come down to the 10th fret 2nd string, 11th fret 3rd string, 12th fret 2nd string, back to the 10th fret, back to the 11th fret 3rd string, and then we're going to resolve on the 10th fret 2nd string. Now that's a lot of notes. Let me back up and I'll play through that. That's what that looks like. Set a metronome. Now what you've got, if you don't learn anything else, you've got this little lick that works over a chord. That's a scale that you can play over a chord. So right now the song is in the key of A as we determined, but that first chord is a D chord. So I'm seeing the D major bar chord here, and I'm in particular looking at this bar and where that major scale lives in relation to this bar. So I've got Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do right off of this bar. So that means if we were playing an A chord change, I could play. I've got those notes. So that means this little lick we learned, you can use that over another chord change. So start thinking about all these licks as like little words that you're learning, and then you can start using those words in other sentences. You don't have to just use this sentence that you're learning in this solo. Okay. That's the first phrase. Then that's what we're going to learn. which is cool. So everything was very major, very happy, and then that one note is where it shifts to the minor scale, minor pentatonic scale in this case. So D, minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1 would be right there. And that's where I'm hitting on that note. I just got off the path for that one note just to give it a different tone. Now I got this lick right out of watching Jerry Garcia play something on YouTube. And I noticed he would do that. He would stay in the major scale and then he would veer off the path just a little bit and play this kind of minor pentatonic thing just to give it a little bit of blues. It's almost like you're cooking and you throw in a little bit of a spice of something. So anyway, that note is the 10th fret 3rd string. I hammered onto the 11th fret 3rd string. And then I came here to the 10th fret 2nd string. Back to the 11th fret 3rd string. And then here's a little run, and you're going to see several of these. And Jerry would do these a lot. Where you've got, what I'm doing is I'm coming up to the 13th fret 2nd string, sliding down to the 12th fret, and then doing a pull off with my finger here on the 10th fret 2nd string the whole time. So you have, and then I do an upstroke. That's a downstroke. I do an upstroke on the 11th fret 3rd string, and then you resolve it on the 10th fret 2nd string. That's a lot of talk, but let me back up and play. I'll play everything up to that point. And then we do this run that goes. Now that's just walking up the scale, but it's adding one extra note, which makes it a chromatic scale. When you're playing chromatically, that means you're taking the notes of the scale, but you're filling in the gaps. So if you're skipping a note, for example, you're filling that in. So that's one of those notes. So it's the 11th fret 4th string, 12th fret 4th string, 9th fret 3rd string, there's that filled in note, which is the 10th fret 3rd string, and then we finish that run on the 11th fret 3rd string. So and then it comes up to the 10th fret 2nd string, 11th fret 3rd string, and then there's two bends that happen, two full bends on the 12th fret 2nd string. So let me back up. And all that happened over the D chord. Now, when I mentioned in the beginning that if I ever get lost, I've always got that root that I can go to. I know the key that the song is in. So here's what I think of, sort of my mental, one of my roots anyway, is this little area, because it's going to work over the A chord, it's going to work over the D chord, and that's just pattern 4 of the major pentatonic scale for the key of A. And I just know that. I just know that if you're playing an A chord, you've got pattern 4 up here. And it's just in a very convenient place for the key of A. So if I get lost in any of this, I can always come back to this. It doesn't matter what the chord is, that's going to work. So a lot of what we just played kind of centers around that. The other thing I should point out is, notice how every time we're kind of, even though the chord is a D, we're resolving to that, which would be the 5th interval in the scale. So 1, 2, so if we're playing D, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's that note, which is kind of unusual. That's a very Jerry thing to do, to not play the obvious. The obvious note would be to be playing the D note because we're playing over a D chord. But he's playing over the 5th interval. You can see how I keep coming back to it? Okay, now the chord changes to the 1. So we're going to go to an A. And all this that we're about to learn, we're switching over. You got to switch now to the A major scale. Really what I'm doing is I'm thinking of this as the A, it's really the A minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1. That always becomes my home base mentally. So I know that the A chord is here, that the bar would be on the 5th fret. So this little lick that we're going to start with is going back and forth between the major and the minor pentatonic scale. It's a great lick to learn. Just take it at face value right now. Let's just learn the lick. So the way that this lick starts is it starts on the 5th fret 2nd string, hammer onto the 6th fret 2nd string, and then the 7th fret 2nd string. And that's a lick that Jerry would use a lot. Look at where that is in relation to the chord shape. And then it resolves there, sorry, on the 5th fret 1st string. Now, that means if you're playing C, look at this. So you've got this little lick now. Pretty cool. Now here's the rest of that lick. So it's going to go between the 7th fret and the 5th fret on the 2nd string, 7th fret 3rd string, and then I come to the 5th fret 3rd string and do a hammer on to the 6th fret 3rd string. So here's how that looks. And then that last note is the 7th fret 4th string. Now look at what I just instinctively did there. I made the A chord. And that happens a lot of times because I've got chords so connected to these scales in my mind that my fingers just kind of want to dance around or lock into that chord. And that's a good thing, because what that allows me to do at this point is do something like this to get us back to the D. And that's what I played. And I got this lick from Jerry, so I didn't come up with this, but that's how it works. Now once I'm in this position, I hold the chord, and I used hybrid picking, so I'm using my ring finger and middle finger on strings 1, 2, pick on the 3rd string. Then I slid that down to a G, because that's where the chord change goes, so that made that easy. And think about that in other ways. So another chord shape would be up here. That's using the D chord shape. So if I were playing a lick up here, I could have done that and resolved it that way. And back to the D. That's why it's important to always think of chord shapes and where you're at, so that when you're playing the chords like this, you can really start to pull out those notes out of the chord. And that's the next level, is to start playing arpeggios from those chord shapes. Then you're really targeting the right notes. And when you can mix scales and arpeggios, you can visualize the chord shapes, you're an awesome player. It's a hard thing to do, though. It does take some time to do, but you can do it. I mean, it doesn't, just start with something simple, 2 chords, go back and forth. All right, so let's back up and play everything up to this point. Now, at this point, I came up to the D chord. Now notice that, see how my hand is already playing sort of the G, I played the A chord, then the G chord. Well, I just did the same thing. I came up to the D chord. I know the D major chord is here, so I'm just playing the top part out of that bar chord. So when I slid up to the 11th fret 3rd string, and then I barred the first 2 strings there on the 10th fret, that's what that is. It's just the top part of the chord. Now this next little lick goes 12th fret 2nd string, 10th fret 2nd string, 12th fret 3rd string, back to the 10th fret 2nd string. And then we're going to do, this is very similar to what we did over the A chord there. So that's a hammer on between the 10th fret and the 11th fret on the 3rd string. And then it resolves on the 12th fret 4th string. So it goes. Okay, now I'm actually going to end this video here. That's going to be the end of part 1. That's a lot of material, and you've actually got a lot of licks that you can start plugging into other things. Let me back up and I'll play through everything, and then we'll see you in part 2. So part 2, we're going to go over the rest of the song, and then obviously as a premium member you'll be able to download the tablature and have that on-screen tab viewer and follow along that way. That's a really great way to learn. And then also play along with the jam track. That's really the ultimate, taking it all and putting it together into that jam track. Here we go, from the start.